Yes, Neil Aggett's death will be reopened. This comes after almost 40 years after he died in custody. Dr. Aggett died under mysterious circumstances while in police custody in 1982. Now, police claim he had taken his own life, but his family is convinced that he was murdered. Aggett's sister is expected to testify today. Let's bring in Nozintombi Miya now, who's been covering this story for us. Nozintombi, a very good morning to you. Let's just start off with what happened yesterday, this in-loco inspection at the Central Johannesburg police station, which is previously known as John Vorster Square. Talk us through what people were experiencing yesterday. No doubt some emotional scenes as well.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Blaine. It certainly was quite emotional yesterday. You'll recall that some of the police officers who worked at the then John Vorster Square in 1981, 1982, as well as some of the inmates who'd been incarcerated or detained there and tortured, told absolutely harrowing stories to Judge Mokome, as well as the legal representatives and the Aggett family that was there. And, you know, the stories that came out really, really sad. You know, the one police officer who worked on the 10th floor, this was a floor that was notoriously known as one of the floors used for interrogation by the then special branch of police, apartheid police, spoke about how on one occasion he saw Aggett through one of the glass doors inside the interrogation room, and the police officer had a rolled up newspaper and was beating Aggett. In one occasion, one of the other former police officers said they saw one of the detainees being made to jump up and down on the spot, yelled at, shouted at, and whipped. So, you know, these stories are such heartbreaking, dehumanizing stories as they recount what their experiences were at that time. So Neil Aggett's family is hoping to get some justice. They're hoping to get closure, and ultimately they're hoping to get to the bottom of the truth of what really happened to Neil Aggett. He'd been incarcerated for 70 days and he'd died. At the time, the police or the state had said that he'd committed suicide by hanging, and obviously the Aggett family does not believe that this is so. But, you know, Jill Berger, who is Aggett's sister, saw him in December of 1981, and she said he looked absolutely emaciated, and that he'd said he'd recounted some of the horrors that he'd gone through in his time in incarceration. While the visit had been quite brief, she said she came out of that meeting with such a sense of despondency and absolute sadness, but with a hope that her brother would be released. Unfortunately for the Aggett family, it wasn't to be so. Yeah. Jill got a phone call from the police that Aggett had passed away on the 5th of February in 1982.
So his sister, Aggett's sister, I understand, will be testifying today. What can we expect from her testimony?
You know, it's quite interesting with Jill Berger. We spoke to her yesterday and on Monday. She's still extremely emotional about it. And the story she recounted was when she had to phone her parents in Cape Town at the time to notify them of his passing. And she said once her father literally touched down in Joburg from Cape Town, he fell to the ground and was absolutely shocked. And he just never recovered from that. Obviously, Aggett's parents have subsequently passed away, as well as one of his brothers. So Jill really is one of the only few family members from the Aggett family seeking justice and hoping that she'll get justice and closure for the family. So her testimony is expected to be quite emotional, and she's expected to give us an account of the type of man that Aggett was, and the days leading up to his incarceration, the days during his incarceration, and obviously what she'd been told and what the family went through after they'd been told by the state police that Aggett had committed suicide.
Yeah. So this inquest kicked off on Monday. Talk to us about some of the biggest takeaways, some of the issues that has come out since Monday.
You know, one of the biggest issues, Blaine, is the issue of missing police records. And it just seems as though the timeline from the first inquest, which was in 1982, the timeline of documents seems to be missing. And, you know, the lawyers for Aggett are saying this is absolutely unacceptable, that even in the police archives, police records, as well as the National Archives, they simply can't find pertinent information. And the information they're looking for is the post-mortem of Aggett. They're also looking for the crime scene. And obviously yesterday's inspection in loco contributed to them being able to at least piece together, you know, a visual overview of the conditions under which Aggett had passed away. And it gave them an overview of the cell that Aggett had been found hanging. So, you know, they're hoping, the Aggett legal team is hoping that throughout the next few weeks, the sittings have been set down for about 6 weeks, but it's expected to run for a little bit longer, perhaps up until about 8 weeks. So they're hoping that in the next few weeks, they'll be able to get all the pertinent information. They'll also be able to get a hold of the police officers who were part of the initial inquest, police officers who may have been part of the torture and the inquisition of Aggett in 1981. So they're hoping to piece together all that information. Judge Mutamai has said that, you know, if it does get to a point where they're simply struggling and they cannot get any information through the correct channels, they'll subpoena the relevant police people to come to court and answer as to why this information is missing and why this information is unobtainable. Blaine.
So today's sitting, Nozi, what time is it expected to start?
Blaine, the sitting today is expected to start at 10 a.m. Jill Berger will be the first witness on the stand. She's expected to say her testimony for about half the day, and after that we're expecting David Dyerson for about 2 hours in the afternoon. And you'll recall David Dyerson is one of the lawyers who was a junior lawyer in the 1982 inquest. He was the co-chair to George Bizos at the time, who'd been the senior attorney for the Aggett family in the 1982 inquest. So it certainly is shaping up to be quite an interesting day. We'll be streaming the entire day, the proceedings as they unfold. Blaine.
Yeah, no doubt. Interesting indeed. We'll try to bring our viewers some of the live proceedings as well. Nozi, thank you very much indeed for your reporting. Our reporter, SABC reporter Nozintombi Miya there, covering this all-important inquest. Stick around to the agenda. We'll try to, as I said, bring in some of these live proceedings. Quick break. More news next.